Kuphina kuphi emakhaya emadolobheni naseTikomplas takhona sakubukela kwehlelo lakho Yilungelo Lakho, it's your right. Silethela ke indzaba texwayiso nako konke ke lokuthinza nini njengebatheni. Mina ke ngisimpiwe Ngcongwane asisingene endzabeni yethu namhla. Ingabe uyazi yini ukuthi yini i-prescribed debt? Lelo ke licala leselibolile ke kwemthetho lekumele ngabe selesuliwe. Kepha ngekungadi kwebathengi, bathengisi ke noma ke ama-creditors bazama emachinga latsite lamanengi kuhambela leso sikweneti. Hlakanipha ke mbukeli ungamane nje uvume isikweneti kanti sewuvusa emanceba lamadzala. Ngaphandle kokuthi ke sikhulume kabanti ngalendzaba asasibuke nangumbiko.
Izikhathini ezinzima umnotho untengantenga wenyukela abathengi becwila ezikweletini. Kwabanye kuze kufike ukuba bafise ukuba engabe izikweletu zabo ziyanyamalala. Kwesinye isikhathi lesi sifiso siyafezakala lapho ngokumthetho uma labo obakweledayo bengakulandeli ngemali yabo iminyaka ize ibe ngaphezulu kwemthathu nawe ungakhokhile lesi sikweletu siyashabalala. Kodwa ke kwabanye lesi sikweletu singaqubuka kuhle kwephupho elibi emva kweminyaka neminyaka wagcina ukuzwa ngaso. Lapho usulandelwa izinkampani nabameli abasuke phela sebethenge isikweletu sakho kulabo wawubakweleda. Phecelezi lolu hlelo lubizwa ngokudayiswa kwe-debt book. Nokuyilapho ke kuyothi ungazelele lutho uthole ucingo oluvela enkampanini yama-debt collectors ikukhumbuza phela ngesikweletu owasenza awangaqeda ukusikhokhela. Oxwayisa abathengi ngamalungelo abo uDaniel Baloyi uthi esikhathini esiningi abathengi basuke bengazi ukuthi kungenzeka isikweletu sabo sidayiselwe enye inkampani nanokuthi kungenzeka ukuba baphoqelelwe ekukhokheni isikweletu esesabola endulo.
They have to request for the details of the account that the collector is calling about to see whether the details are correct, the account numbers is the same account that they're talking about. Also check if the balance is the correct balance, because the economic is an indublem rule. Indublem rule, rule it is the client cannot be charged double the amount that they owe at the time the account fall into arrears. Most consumers are not aware that collectors mostly they'll find them but collector go a debt which is prescribed already, which is over 3 years without payment, without communication, no between the consumer and the credit provider. So that debt is deemed to be prescribed.
uDaniel uthi leli elinye lamacala abakwazile ukulihlaziya kwatholakala ukuthi umthengi ubeselandelwa ngama-debt collectors ngesikweletu esacishwa kudala ibhange ayethathe kulo imali emboleko i-loan phela. Izitolo namabhange kanye nalabo bakweledayo bangayidayisa imininingwane yakho, kodwa njengomthengi nakho kufuze ukwazi. Abakwazi ukukulandelela ngesikweletu esesibolile nanokuthi umthetho awuvumi ukuba abathengi ba-blacklistwe ngesikweletu esesasulwa. Kanti akuzizo zonke izikweletu ezingashabalala emva kweminyaka emithathu noma ngaphezulu. Izikweletu ezifana njengamabhondi ezindlu zithatha iminyaka engama-30 kuba zicishwe uma ungakhokhi nebhange lingakulandeleli. Okubalekile njengomthengi zijwayeze ukuhlola isimo sakho sezezimali ngokuthola i-credit record yakho njalo ngonyaka mahala. Enye inkinga yokudayiswa kwezincwadi zezikweletu ukuthi kusuke kahle kahle kudayiswa imininingwane yakho. Lokhu kwenzeka ngaphandle kokuxhumana nawe. Ingabe umthetho uthini ngalokhu? Ukuphendula lo mbuzo sivakashele amahhovisi akwa-National Information Regulator nokuyibona abamele ukuphepha nemfihlakalo yokuphathwa kwezemininingwane yabantu kuleli. Sikhulume nommeli uSizwe Snail Kamtuze.
Law agreement between i-retailer or the bank and lo muntu abamdayiselayo incwadi le ye-debt kufanele ibe ne-paragraph ngaphakathi, ibe ne-clause ngaphakathi ethi le information personal enizoyithola la kule ncwadi nisebenzise kuphela for ukuleqana nalabantu for le mali. And once baqedile ukuthola, once ibhadelwe lo mali, umthetho uthi kufanele uyidestroy le information.
Usizwe uthi njengomthengi unalo ilungelo lokubuza nanoma ubani okufonelayo ukuthi imininingwane yakho uyithole kuphi kanjani. Kanti uma ke ungagculisekile ngempendulo,
ungabhalela i-office ye-information regulator ufake isikhalazo sakho sokuba kunomuntu one-personal information yakho awuyazi ba uyithole kanjani and amambuza ba uyithole kanjani akafuna ukutshela. So i-information regulator ke izo-engage lo nkampani ibabuze baba ithole njani information yakho, if bayithole ngakho sonke emthethweni kufanele bayidelete le information yakho.
Njengomthengi yazi ukuthi unamalungelo nanokuthi ungazifaki ezikweledini ongeke ukwazi ukuzikhokhela ngokucabanga ukuthi ziyovele zinyamalale nje, ngoba lokho kuyongcolisa igama lakho emabhukwini akwa-credit bureau iminyaka ubophelekile ungakwazi ukuthenga lutho. Hlengiwe Shibambu, Yilungelo Lakho.
Siyabonga ke kuhlengiwe Shibambu ngokusihlanganisela ke lo mbiko. Nyalo ke kungena endzabeni yanamhla sesimukele ke Chantel Cronje uvela ke lapha enhlanganweni lebitwa ngithiwa yi-Legal and Tax. Sinaye ke na Rihanna Stein lovela e-Banking Services Ombudsman, kanzi ke siphinde sibe naye futhi na Tekani Mabasa lovela ke Council for Debt Collectors. A very good afternoon to you three and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Now, Chantel, I'm going to start with you. Tell us more, what is a prescribed debt and when does a debt become prescribed?
So basically, for consumer in layman's terms, if you maybe had an Edgar's account and you haven't paid them for the last 3 years, you haven't acknowledged to anyone verbally or in writing to anyone from Edgar's or a debt collector that you owe them money if they've called you, and you haven't made any payment, then in terms of the Prescription Act, that debt lapses, it gets extinguished. And that means then basically no one can come and take legal action against you to obviously sue you for that debt or basically list you on the credit bureau.
Okay. Now, Tekani, correct me if I'm wrong, but debt counselors, or rather debt collectors, have been involved in illegal activity for all these years by trying to demand payment from a debt that is prescribed.
Yeah, on public perception, I can say yes. But when you look at it at a legal point of view, debt collectors buy debt books. Debt books, how you buy it is a session. For an example, let's take the bank is selling 5 billion for the debt which they cannot able to recoup. They sell it by 5 million to a debt collector. It's a session. So debt collectors start calling the debtors for that amount to recoup it. So now they own the debt. So there's no illegal activity. It's a matter of understanding why now the debt had been sold to a third party. So the debt collector, as the owner of the debt, it has a right and the obligation. They can either reduce the debt or withdraw the debt. So it is up to them. They can give you a discount because it is their debt now. It is not longer the bank's debt. So it will appear in the bank's book as written off. And to the consumers, when they see it in their credit profile written off, they think, yeah, this debt disappeared and somebody calls me for this debt which is written off. No, written off means a loss. It's an accounting word which is being used by the bank that they lost the money. That's why they sold it cheap to another party to collect it.
And I understand that not all debt can be prescribed within the 3-year period. Which are some of these debts that cannot be prescribed?
Yeah, when you look at the Prescription Act, as well as the National Credit Act, which was amended in 2015, Section 126B. I will start with Section 126B. It talks about the debt which prescribes, which is in terms of the National Credit Act, meaning that it's 3 years, as Chantel indicated. Like Edgar's account is a debt in terms of the Credit Act. But there are other debts like mortgage bonds, credit judgment, which people don't understand, because I can get a judgment debt. Let's say it's an Edgar's account. get a judgment and look for assets to attach, or you were not employed by then. So the judgment debt prescribes in 30 years as well, meaning that that will follow you in 30 years.
Okay. Now, Rihanna, you are from the Banking Ombudsman. So in particular, which other cases that you have to deal with in relation to, you know, some debt collectors who unscrupulously demand prescribed debt?
I think the kind of complaints that we've seen, let me just explain. First of all, some consumers will think that their debts have prescribed. In the meantime, judgment was taken. Just because you're not aware of the judgment doesn't mean it wasn't taken, and then there's 30 years. So they'll get the call, it's maybe 2-3 years later, 4 years later, and they'll say, oh, this is prescribed debt, unscrupulous behavior, let me report this. But in the meantime, there was a letter of demand sent to your registered address. There was a summons issued. There was default judgment taken without your knowledge. It happens very often, unfortunately. And then the consumer in the meantime thought nothing is happening. There's no demand. There's no summons. They're in the clear. And once that judgment is taken, it's 30 years. So they will complain, and then we will investigate to see what really happened here. So you'll ask the bank for all their information, and then they will prove to you that they took the judgment before the prescription time. If, of course, they sell the book debt after prescription date, it will be against the Credit Act. And they will have to immediately reverse those steps. Yeah. If they hand it over to debt collectors and there's any question about prescription, and consumers do raise it, okay, then we'll go into, like, when was the last payment? Prove the last payment for us. That's what you'll ask the bank. And they will have to say, okay, the last payment was on this date. Maybe the consumer forgot about it. They're not quite aware exactly when that date is. So we'll go into that to see, has the debt prescribed or hasn't it? And then you'll give all that information to the consumer, and you will say to him, his complaint is valid. Right. They will write off this debt, they will cancel it, or they're actually going to proceed, and you'll tell them why.
All right, I want to engage you more about the likelihood or the possibility of reversal of acknowledgement of debt in just a moment. Kumbula ke mbukela ukuthi imininingwane yakho, imfihlo yakho naloyo ke lomgwenetayo. Uma ke ushayelwa i-debt collector, unelungelo lokubuta ukuthi uyithathephi le mininingwane yakho. Siyabuya khona nyalo. Tincingo tethu setivuliwe ke mbukeli, ungashayela khona lapha e-studio ubute ke umbuto noma ke ubeke umbono. Sikhona futhi ku Facebook na ku Twitter. Let's now continue with our conversation. That point that I made earlier before we went to that ad break. So is there a possibility of a likelihood to reverse an acknowledgement? Say, for instance, Tekani calls me and demands payment for a loan that I took more than 3 years ago, and I do acknowledge that I do know that debt, and then only to realize a short while later that I shouldn't have, because that debt is actually prescribed.
Well, of course, as long as they phone you before prescription, they're still allowed to do that. Otherwise, they're in breach of the Act. So let's say it is before the 3-year period, and you acknowledge it, because then the minute you acknowledge it, you're interrupting that prescription. Unfortunately, you can't take it back. I mean, there's no ways that you can phone up later and say, you know what, that conversation we had where I acknowledged the debt, where I said that I'm going to pay, or at least that I know I owe the money, I want to take it back because I didn't realize that I'm actually prejudicing myself. There's no ways you can take that back. That's a legally bounding conversation that you had where you acknowledge the debt. Unfortunately, ignorance of the law is not going to assist you in asking to take it back.
Okay.
And it's recorded. All of those conversations are always recorded. So that's the kind of thing also when there's an issue about this. What was said, what was acknowledged, was it really an acknowledgement? We'll listen to the conversations.
Okay. Now, Tekane umvile ke Rihanna ukhuluma nge-interruption of the prescription of debt. Under what circumstances can a debt, prescribed debt be interrupted?
As I indicated, there are 2 types of prescription. So there's a prescription in terms of Prescription Act, meaning that that one, if you acknowledge payment, irrespective whether it's after 3 years, then you're waiving your right of prescription, meaning that that debt will not be a debt in terms of the National Credit Act. However, there's also prescription in terms of the National Credit Act, meaning that that one, you cannot, if it's 3 years, you call a person and he acknowledges, then it is unlawful action of that collector or the credit provider. And that the Act also says that you cannot collect or hand or sell a prescribed debt. It's unlawful. So if a credit provider is doing that, then it's against the law. So the consumers, what they have to know is they need not to acknowledge payment. They have to find out first, when did they pay? When was the last time? So, but if they acknowledge and it's not a debt in terms of the National Credit Act, then they waive their common law right of prescription, meaning that the court now have to decide whether it's prescribed or not.
But Tekani, you guys, and when I say you guys, I'm talking about debt collectors, you often coerce the consumers to acknowledge with the threat of legal action.
Actually, debt collectors are just using legal techniques to recoup the money. So even the consumers themselves, they have to be consumer wise. They have to know their rights. It is very important that when you are called by a debt collector, you find out where is he calling from, for which debt, and how old is the debt. And then you will come back to him after you have investigated. Don't just acknowledge. But if you acknowledge and then it's a debt which does not fall under National Credit Act, it means that you are going to pay the debt because he acknowledged. They will later bring it as evidence and say, if you complain to the council, you say they're collecting a prescribed debt, they will tell you, you have acknowledged payment in writing or verbally.
So when you talk of legal techniques, is it really legal demanding payment on a prescribed debt? That's in breach of the National Credit Act.
If you are demanding payment of a debt which had prescribed in terms of the National Credit Act, it's illegal. But if you are demanding payment for a debt, for an example, doctor's bill, after 4 years, it's not illegal. But at the moment, I know there's a process in Parliament where the National Credit Regulator or DTI want to amend that so that they make it one thing, as well as the
on that point, why
South African
law
law
is it
reform.
Not legal?
You see, it's the way the legislation it is. We have two forms of legislations which are dealing with one thing. Prescription in terms of the Credit Act, prescription in terms of the Prescription Act. So we have two legislation until they repeal one and they make it one.
Okay.
But St. Peter,
Do you want to
if
share
I
more on
may
that, Chantal?
I just want to add, I find with many of our clients, it's not just about knowing your consumer rights, that they don't know about the rules and regulations around debt collection. So I find that most clients also, they get harassed to a certain point where they acknowledge to pay because they don't want to have the calls, they don't want to have the emails, and certain companies unfortunately do send debt collectors to your place of work. So they normally acknowledge because they feel intimidated. So consumers not only need to educate themselves on the prescription specifications, but also like when can someone phone you to collect. There's a certain cutoff point before 6 a.m. or 9 p.m. in the evenings, and so there's certain rights that they need to know as well regarding the collection methods.
All right, well, this discussion is getting more interesting. Let's take our first caller. We've got Spiwo from Germiston. Siyaphila kunjani Spiwo?
Spiwo from Johannesburg. Mina ngikwi-debt collectors bayathatha imali yami each and every month.
Okay.
And then bathi bona bazonibhatalela amatyala wami. Ndanine loan from kwi-bank yami, Capitec Bank, but so imali abayithatha ingale kwe-5,700 ngomrholo wami. So into eyenzekayo ke angifumani statement, angifumani ilentuka into echazayo ukuba how far am I namatyala am.
Okay. Okay, Spiwo, siyabonga kakhulu ukushayela. He's basically saying that debt collectors collect money every month from his salary, but then there's no statement to show how much is paid and how much is remaining. What's the legality when it comes to that?
I think when it comes to a salary deduction, there might be a emoluments order on his name. So basically what we found with some debt collectors, unfortunately, those debt collectors who they send to your place of work, they usually came with documents where it's like 5 or 10 pages and you just want to get rid of the debt collector and you're signing documents without knowing, and that's where you sign the acknowledgement of debt, you're signing the consent to judgment or to have an emoluments order to deduct money from your salaries. But in that instance, you are entitled to a statement, and I think if the debt collector is not willing to give that to you, then that would be a complaint for the council to attend to.
Okay. All right, and I want to engage you more on that, Tekani and Rihanna, after the break. Angeke ubekwe licala ngekuthi uthengise i-debt book. Kepha-ke akukho emthethweni kukoleka sikweleti lesesiphelele isikhathi phecelezi i-prescribed debt. Lungelo lakho-ke leli, siyabuya kusayat market khonyana. Yilungelo Lakho, siyakumukela ehlelweni mbukele. Let's now go to Wheatbank. Joseph is there, our second caller. Siyakumukela ehlelweni, sawubona.
Hello baba, sawubona.
Kunjani baba?
Ngiyaphila baba.
Siyaphila baba. Khuluma nathi baba.
Baba nginenkinga la. Inkinga yami ukuthi kunabanye abantu bazibiza ukuthi i-lifestyle legal like. So labantu bathi mina ngiyabakoloda imali yakulingana 1560 like. So mangenze research try ukungena online ngifuna ama details yabo like. So even mangifonera aba pick up my calls ngifuna ukuyazi ukuthi imali yani le ngiyikolodayo ngoba akuna into le ngiyibolekile kubo or something like. So uthola ukuthi bengifuna ukuthi ngithenge indlu, so bona bangiblacklistile angisakhona ukuba ne-access yokuthi ngathola something like ukuthi ngikhona uthola le indlu le bengifuna ukuyithenga like.
Manje-ke Joseph, nabakushayela uyazivuma lesikwenedi?
Mina angizivumi ngoba angicela nginext kuba anginamali le babuye banginikeze, so angazi ngikolota yini like.
Okay, sicela ubambe kancane ke Tekani ufuna ukuva something from you.
Kunjani baba Joseph? Kunjani baba?
Ngiyaphila baba.
Ngiyaphila. I-lifestyle legal thina siyaba regulate. Ngifuna ukwazi ku ube wayenze application yesikoloto online.
Yeah, long time like angisazi ukuthi which year. So and after that.
Okay. All right. Ngicela after the show uthatha ama contact wethu ungicontact e-office zokunceda.
Yathini ama number?
Awuzowathola after the show.
Okay, so more uzongithumela wona.
Usho ukuthi ke before ubeke phasi icingo ama producers ethu atawuchumana nawe ke immediately after this call. Siyabonga kakhulu Joseph kusishayela. Let's now take a look at some of the Facebook messages that have been coming through this hour. All right, Ayanda says, our people are suffering. These companies call our people. They convince them to take things on credit. Once they fail to pay, they receive calls from the unknown, demanding money. This is very serious. Cry our beloved country. Imali impande yesona, abantu bakithi bathelwe kanzima. Tereso uthi, if you admit that yes, you owe them, then why do they come with force to embarrass you in front of your neighbors? And Talwando uthi yena ke molweni basasazi bami apho e-studio siyabulela ngeshow yenu. Mina ndicela ukuqonda into ba ungancedakala kanjani ungumuntu mhlambi kule ngxaki lapha eBhaya eWoma location. All right. Let's now continue this discussion. Do you want to weigh in on some of the Facebook messages or the caller that's been coming through, Chantal?
Unfortunately, I didn't understand most of those messages, so maybe you can first just translate it.
Let me ask Tekani to maybe summarize a bit on that.
Yes, with the messages from Facebook, I can say they have a right to complain in our offices, like the one somebody parking the car in their houses or embarrass them in front of the neighbors. Then they have a right to come and complain. In terms of the code of conduct, it's not allowed. You cannot come driving a car marked Mabasa debt collectors and park next to your house. It's not allowed. Or I come to work wearing the T-shirt in front of your colleagues and say, I'm looking for Simpio here. Then everyone knows that the debt collector is looking for you. It's not allowed. So they have to make a formal complaint to us. We'll deal with the debt collector.
All right. Now, Chantel, if a creditor struggles to locate a debtor within the 3-year period or the period under review for a debt to be prescribed, well, as a result of change of address or change of contact details, then the law favors the debtor in this particular instance and the creditor is prejudiced.
So yes, if the creditor hasn't been able to locate them and they haven't summoned them, so that's basically where you get the letter of demand, you go to court and your next document has a case number and the sheriff comes knocking at your door, then basically it prescribes. So if you only come, if you haven't acknowledged prior to that, made payment or agreed to acknowledgement of debt, then it's prescribed. Then they can't sue after the 3 years.
Okay. Now, Rihanna, we talk of the Prescription Act and prescription in terms of the National Credit Act. What's the difference there? Can you clarify that for us?
Yes, maybe we need to just clarify that the National Credit Act is an act written for credit agreements. Now, as you know, not everything in this country that is done is under a credit agreement. So that act and the rules under it, for example, that you cannot phone, that you cannot collect, that you cannot sell a book, only applies to credit agreements. Okay, so that's what they wrote into that piece of legislation. But of course now there's everything else outside the National Credit Act. For example, like you said, a doctor's account. That's not a credit agreement. It never was, it never will be. So if the doctor's officers or even the attorney acting on behalf of the doctor phones you 4 years later, then the normal Prescription Act applies. And that says that yes, it still prescribes after 3 years. But if at any point later on you make a demand and you acknowledge it or you pay, there's nothing illegal about it. So, you know, it was never illegal in this country before, even under credit agreements, to phone somebody 5 years later, demand payment, and if you pay, so be it. It wasn't illegal. It's not, you know, there's nothing unlawful about it. But now they wrote it into the Act and said for credit agreements, no longer allowed. But still, there are all these other things that happen in life. I mean, say for example, you have a personal agreement with somebody that you have a contract with. It's not a credit agreement, it's between you and your friend. That document and that agreement will be under the Prescription Act. Sure. So yes, the 3-year prescription period still applies because that's where it's written. But there's that little extra, and that is that if you do something afterwards, it's no longer unlawful. Right. Okay.
As asiphinde sibuyele eMpumalanga, we've got an anonymous caller there. Sakumoya hleleni sawubona.
Hello njani futhi?
Siyaphila kunjani mama?
Ngiyaphila. Ngithi ngicela ukubuza ukuthi uma ngike ngaba nesikweleti ngagcina kusibhadala ngo-2011, then last year ngo-December bangifonela bangikhumbuza ngaso, then ngasivuma kusho ukuthi ngivume isikweleti sengizivuselele na.
Kahle kahle make lo prescribed debt lokusho ukuthi wena uphinze wavuma sikweneti lesesidzala ulivumile licala leselibolile within the 3-year period bekumele ngabe awuzange uvuma wathi awusadi lesikweneti for it to become a prescribed debt. But ke ngicela usidekani achazele kabanti ngaloko. He's basically saying that he had a debt, she had a debt in 2011, and then they called her in December last year. So I just explained to her that it is actually a prescribed debt, and she acknowledged that debt.
Is kweleti sani sis?
The clothing.
So clothing account.
Yes.
Kumele ureporta ku National Credit Regulator because leskweleti sifola under National Credit Act. So abavumela kanga ukuthi basikoleka. Umthetho ovuma ukuthi basikoleka. So wena kumele ufonela le ku National Credit Regulator obatshela ukuthi ufonelwa ngama debt collector or yibo laba se clothing store account.
No, but banginika lelinye ligama kungasasilo ligama lesitolo.
Ngicela uba reporta ku National Credit Regulator.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's now talk about another issue here. Can a prescribed debt be reactivated by a third party who bought a debt book from a creditor?
Yes, you know, now we'll go deep in law. So there is a recent case whereby this section 126B had been interpreted by the court at the Supreme Court of Appeal. It was regarding the prescription in terms of section 126B. This debt originated before 2015 when this act, this section 126B was inserted at the National Credit Act, the court said this section does not apply retrospectively, meaning that if a debt originate in 2015, before 2015, it can be sold. So, but for now, we see now trade and industry is busy now with public consultation that they want to include all the debts in terms of the act. But the court said it does not apply retrospectively. Okay. So technically, it can be sold.
Okay. Chantel, do you want to weigh in on that? I mean, can the credit providers selling prescribed debt and knowing that it is actually prescribed debt to third parties, are they complicit in the breach of the NCA?
Unfortunately, no. We've had quite a few instances, but it's only because the consumer doesn't know about this. You know, they don't know from March 2015 you're not allowed to obviously collect on prescribed debt. So we've had quite a few, but consumers don't know those two important questions. Like if it comes to a situation where it used to be an Edgar's account and now a debt collector by a different name is now the owner of the debt book and they call you, they don't know that it's no longer connected to Edgar's. They have to ask those specific questions as to when did you buy the book and can I have my last statement? Those two questions can obviously help us to determine whether they bought the book before or after March 2015. Then we would know if it's illegal or not.
Let's now talk about the invasion of privacy in terms of the Personal Protection Information Act. I mean, if a creditor sells a debt book, they essentially sell my personal information to a third party.
Unfortunately, it comes back to when you originally go and enter into a credit agreement. I think most consumers don't either read or understand the small fine print, the terms and conditions, because most agreements do make provision for a certain clause that says that you give the credit provider, say Edgar's again in this instance, that they will have the right to cede. That means transfer the credit agreement from them to a debt collector. So basically, when you enter into the agreement, you've already agreed to that.
Okay, let's leave it there for now. Sizaqhubeka futhi nekufundisana ngemalungelo akho uma ke ubhekene nema debt collectors. Hlala nathi ke siyabuya emva kweli khefu. Welcome back. Uma ke unenkinga lephathelene ne debt collection, mhlawumbe ke tivakashi tethu lapha e-studio dingakusida usishayele usitshele indzaba yakho. Asasiye lapha ke ePhilippi in the Western Cape. Kunaxolani sakumele ehleleni sabona Xolani.
Eboneni baftu.
Kunjani baba?
Siyaphila baba.
Hayi siyaphila. Khuluma nathi baba.
Ukuthi ndinenkinga apha ndike ndafumana i-call kwinyanga ezimbini ezigqithile. Lo sisi lona uthi mna igama lami liku-credit bureau, although mna ndizazi ukuthi zonke izikweletini zami ndazibhatala ndaziklerisha zonke, uthi igama lami liyavela kuma-credit bureau, so angeke ndikwazi u-aplya noba ndi-aplya i-loan noba ndi-aplya imoto mhlawumbi intoni, angeke ndikwazi because igama lami limdaka phaa, andizazi mna ndiyi-credit bureau. So ndazama ukuthi makanditshekishele ngeziphi izikweleti ingazange ndikwazi ukuthi ndizibhatale. Wathi bhuti andikwazi ukuzijonga apha kum, but usisi lo into endayithandayo kuye wandinikeza yonke i-information yakhe. Wathi ungunombuso Nkosi, wandishiya nenamba zakhe, wathi imali ekufanele ukuthi mna ndiyibhatale ukuze bandiklerishe igama lami credit bureau izoba yi-1,800. wathi but uzoyibhatala in 2 months, ndibhatala kwinyanga oqala ndiphinde ndibhatele kwinyanga oqala. Ingathi wayiphinde wabhatala 900 phinde kwenye inyanga yesibini ndibhatala 900, so bazayiklerisha kwezi akhawunti zam. Wathi i-akhawunti zam ziyi-5 endikwi-credit bureau kuzo, but mna uba ama-akhawunti wam each and every month awe-clothing store ndiyawabhatala each and every month, andizazi ukuthi ndisenza ngesimelo kwesithile. Iproblem yabo nabhukisipo iyi-one, andikwazi ukuthi ndingatshekisha njani igama lam credit bureau because uthi yena akakwazi ukungena ajonge ukuba ngeziphi ezitore zinamatyala kuzo, but uthi likhona igama lam likuma-credit bureau, so andikwazi ukuthi ndancedakala kanjani uba lo sisi lona shortly lo sisi lona bendizobhatala but because ndiyafuna igama lami libe clear, bendizobhatala last month. Qha ke unfortunately ndiye ndiyaba ne-funeral kamama wam, andakwazi ukuthi mandiyibhatalele 800. Ngabe ndizoyibhatala, wandifowunela wathi bhuti uthe uzobhatala nge-15 April. Ndithi ewe sithi qha ndizokwazi ngoku because ndinengxaki ngoku kamama wam. Wathi okay, sophinda-ke sibuye sikhulume but usisi wanikeza yonke information yakhe wanikeza zonke ii-number zakhe i-office number yakhe wanika igama lakhe wanika iseleni yakhe qha ke ngoku andiyazi ukuthi ndazibhala phi into zakhe ndandizibhale phantsi but ndisenayo i-message eyayisuka phaa kubo nathi phaa kum efowunini.
Mane ke Xolani, before you continue, uthi ke wamtshela ukuthi angeke ukhone because you cannot afford to, noma ke wazivuma lesikweneti ukuthi you actually acknowledging it? Xolani, uzivumile lesikweneti?
Bhuti into endivumileyo iyi-one, ndithe mna ndiyayazi ukuba ngabana ndine-TV license zange ndibhatale but ilwazi lam uma une-TV license unetyala le-TV license bathi abantu awukhona ukuze ube kwi-credit bureau nanto nje qha into ebendiyazi.
Shotse kahle kahle lesikweneti wasivuma ukuthi yebo uyazivuma lesikweneti uyasathi futhi angisho?
Ya ndayivuma i-TV license ya.
Okay. All right, siyabonga kakhulu kusishayela ke. Yeah, please summarize that for that.
Yes, what I understand is in straight word, he been knocked. Somebody called him that he's owing and his name is at the credit bureau. He should pay so much so that she can clear the name. But that person does not have his information. What he's supposed to know and other consumers should know, you can get your credit record free of charge in a year from any credit bureau. So what he should do, he should contact any credit bureau. They will require some personal information from him that to provide him with the credit report. Then he can see who listed him, who is he owing, who is he, or with the areas accounts. So he mustn't take it that like this lady who called him was assisting him. In street word, he been knocked.
Okay.
He should report that to the police if he have that information.
Okay. Do you want to weigh in on that, Chantel? How long should a prescribed debt stay on the credit report?
Well, unfortunately, you cannot list someone once it's prescribed. So in terms of the Act, if you get a debt collector, before they list you, they're supposed to send you a letter, obviously, first to say that, okay, within 20 business days or so, we're going to list you on the credit bureau. But they cannot list you if it has already prescribed and you haven't acknowledged, you haven't paid, and they haven't sued you for that money. So that they cannot do. They cannot list that negative information on your credit bureau. But if they did follow the process where you basically went into arrears and they sent a letter or anything else, there's different listings. So you get one where you get a default, that's basically where you get flagged as a person who's not able to pay their debt, and then on certain instances you also get like a monthly indication as to whether you paid late or whether you paid short. So there's different information that they can list you for, but in terms of the flag one where you say you're a defaulter, you cannot do that once it's prescribed.
Sure. I see, Tikani, you need to make a point, and Rihanna, I want to engage you on that after the break. As I spend the careful, Elinye Mbugeli, siyabuya khona nyalo. Sawumola futhi Mbugeli, asasichubeke nenkulumo yethu, but before we continue that discussion, let's go to Krugersdorp. Tapelo is there. Sakumukela ehlelweni Tapelo sawubona.
Sanibona baba kunjani?
Siyaphila kunjani baba?
Ngiyaphila ngicela ukubuza ngingenza i-loan smart finance and then ngamisa one payment and then I settled the account due date was ngayo, but they said they put my name on trace.
Come again? They took your name where?
Yes, ngine loan smart finance,
Yes.
And then ngamisa one payment. But I finished to pay iskolo to ngale date was and then because I missed one payment, they said they put my name on trace, and then I go to them, they say my name will change automatically after a month or 2 months. I think now it's been a year since my name is on trace. I failed to tell my loans or tell my account.
Okay, Tapelo sabonga khulu kusishayela. How do you respond to that, just briefly?
What Tapelo need to do is to call the credit bureau and dispute the listing that he finished paying the loan, and then the credit provider have to issue him with a paid up letter, then he give it to credit bureau, they will remove the listing.
Okay. Chantel, how would you respond to that briefly?
Well, again, I touched on these two types of listings. So remember, you can either be flagged where you basically get categorized as a certain payer, a default or a slow pay or late pay, but it also shows your monthly payment history. So the default or the flag you can remove once you get the paid up letter, but the payment history is there for the banks to see what has your payment history been in the last year or 2 years. That cannot be removed. So first thing for him would obviously to get the free credit record to see if it's just his payment history where it shows it's in red, or whether it's a default that's been listed. And then basically if it is, and he's got the paid up letter, and then he can send that to the credit bureau himself, and then they would remove it within 20 days or so, and then he'd be able to have a clear record.
Okay, so tell me something. If I sign a credit agreement with a creditor, and then I fail to pay the debt, they try to locate me and they can't within the 3-year period under review, and then they start contacting and harassing the info, or rather the people or my relatives or whoever I put on the credit agreement, and that the person says, oh, Simpio Ngongwan, I know Simpio Ngongwan is my cousin. Yes, I know that debt. He told me about it. So how does that work?
So only the person who entered into and signed the agreement is the one to acknowledge it. So if a friend or any other third party acknowledges on your behalf, it's not going to be valid. So the person itself who owes the credit provider, that person needs to acknowledge the debt. Okay. The only rights that maybe the other third party has, who they now contacting because they were the next of kin or anything like that, they would be able to rely on the code of conduct in terms of what the Debt Collectors Act says. Okay. So they're not able to harass your friends or your family. They have to specifically contact you directly after that.
All right, all right. Now, Rihanna, your closing comments or tips and advice for consumers?
There's so many. But to keep it short, I think consumers must just be aware that organisations such as ourselves, there's a credit ombud, that we're there, we're free of charge. So similar complaints to what they've raised here today, they can phone our call centres, they can have that discussion, and they can get the free advice. So any complaint against a bank...
What's their number? What's your number?
0861 800 900. Okay. So they can, if complaint against a bank, they must phone, even if it's a debt collector acting on behalf of the bank, and they've got an issue, any issue, they can phone and we can help them through the process to log a complaint.
Okay. All right, Tekani, your closing comments. Quickly.
Yes, consumers are welcome to lodge complaints to our offices, Council for Debt Collectors. Whatever complaint they have with the debt collectors, will assist them.
All right, and your closing comments, Chantal, and your tips and advice for consumers?
I would say that consumers, we're also there to help them as well. They're more than welcome to phone us because we give services free of charge as well. So it's Legal and Tax 087 587 587.
All right. Thank you so much for chatting to us this afternoon. We really appreciate your time. And they will have all their personal details, or rather their organizational details, on our Facebook page, Yilungelo Lakho. Kuthiwa ke lokungapheli kuyahlola. Nathi ngalokunjalo sesifikile emaphethelweni alihlelo lethu namhla. Sibonga ukuthi ube nathi kwade kwaba sekugcineni bukene. Siyabonga kakhulu nasedvakashini tethu ngekusipha lwadi. Lo hlelo kulitawuphindwa ngalesine ebusuku ngensimbi yelishumi. Letingena inhlelo tethu tiyatfolakala ku YouTube. Kanti ke siphindze sihlangane ngomsombuluko lodako nga 12 p.m. khona lapha kumabona kuthe SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Leli Yilungelo Lakho. Thank you so much for watching.
Yilungelo Lakho.